Because God is the greatest power. See, you won't be defeated on tonight. Welcome to Therapy Tuesdays. Yeah, I had to play that song because you won't be defeated. You're not defeated. You are an overcomer. See, I'm still spiritually high for Sunday, y'all. I'm excited. Pentecost fell, the Holy Spirit here. And guess what? We made it to Tuesday, Therapy Tuesday. It's a special Therapy Tuesday, a special session. This is May, the month of mental health awareness. You know, we started Therapy Tuesdays a little over a year ago last year. And so mental health is big in our community, in our culture. And so tonight, what are we talking about? Understanding mental health, understanding therapy, the myths, the truths, and the needs. Because guess what? We've all needed it at some point in our life. I've needed it. There was points in my life early on that I wish I would have had the courage to step out and do it and just allow God to use someone else to give me some tips, some tools, some encouragement, some inspiration. But you know, guess what? I got it. And now that I got it, I understand the freedom in it. And so we want to share it here at Love and Faith Restoration. We want to make sure not only are you spiritually well, but you are mentally well. Because guess what? It all ties together. There's no separation. As my search says, you can't see it. It's a little small, but it says, I need Jesus and my therapist. You understand? Because sometimes you need somebody else to talk to. Yes, I'm a pastor. Yes, I can counsel. Yes, but sometimes you need to go to somebody that has a little bit more knowledge and understanding than your pastor does. We're going to pray for you. We're going to fast for you. We're going to intercede for you. But I just believe that God created counseling and therapy for a reason. So tonight, again, the myths, the truths, the needs, you know, sometimes the lies, because people will lie to you, tell you don't need that. Just pray about it. Yeah, keep praying about it, but take some steps. So, you know, we got Miss Janae Ponder. She's no stranger to Love and Faith. This is her second home. She got a home down there in Florida, but this is her second home. You know, she is a boss mom, bosspreneur, you know, business owner, woman of strategy, woman of victory. Because guess what? She has conquered so many things in her life. She's a wife. She's a mother. She's a sister. She's a friend. She's a granddaughter. I mean, she wears all kind of hats and roles, but she takes the time out to come and pour into us. So I'm excited about what she's going to bring to us on tonight. And as she comes, y'all, give her some welcome, like it, share it, comment, as well as we'll have some things on the chat that we'll put in for you, you know, that you can come and be a part. And actually tonight we're going to do something a little different. Look, I done threw this on the, she ain't even know. But guess what? Say, if you want to be brought in when we're going through our question and answer, what I'm going to need you to do is text the email, the number that I give you at 910-444-1698. You will receive an email and we're going to join you on the live. So guess what? We're going to make it interactive tonight. You know, sometimes you got to just do some things, but I hope you're excited. I hope you got your pen, you got your paper, you got your notebook, whatever it is that you need. Guess what? This is your time to get it. So we're going to bring Miss Janae Ponder to the stage. Y'all welcome her with some love, some fire, some hand claps, whatever it is that resonates with you.
Hey, I'm home again. I don't feel like a stranger in this space at this point. Today, I'm going to be dropping some nuggets. I'm not sure if my therapy friend's going to be happy with me because I'm going to give you the key to the back door. I'm going to give you guys some information that a lot of people wish they had. So I hope you have a notebook. Hope you're paying attention. But it's going to be very helpful and practical. So we're going to talk about understanding the reality of mental health, dissecting the myths and the truths. As always, I want you to take care of yourself. If you get triggered, I'm not sure what will trigger you. It's not my intent to trigger you. But if you find yourself triggered, take care of yourself. Get some water, pause, go talk to a friend, but just put some space between you and the presentation if you find yourself triggered. I have one objective today. My main objective is for you to gain a better understanding of the reality of what therapy is. Happy Mental Health Awareness Month. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It started back in 1949, and we've been observing it every year. A lot of times you hear people say mental health is real, and when something tragic happens, mental health becomes something that's highlighted and exploded. But the reality is, it's mental health is health, and it's something that really should be a part of our daily activities in our daily lives. But in the month of May, we especially highlight it. So happy Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm just going to jump right out of the gate with the material. The first thing we are going to look at are some myths. I have I think about 18 myths that I'm going to talk about, and pause, dialogue through them with you guys. And if someone has a question, we're going to pop you in and we're going to have just a real good discussion. So the first myth, and it's very common, those who seek therapy are weak, mentally ill, or crazy. A lot of times people will not even try to get therapy because to admit that you need help in this world, for some reason is evidence that you're not strong enough, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. We persecute people who are not perfect, and the reality is no one is perfect. And the reality is everyone is persecuted because they're not perfect. So at some point we have to examine how we're operating as humans and really try to be more graceful and kind to people when we show up less than perfect, and especially be kinder to ourselves. Authorities will lock you in a hospital if you share some of your symptoms. Maybe you're someone who's not sleeping, who's not eating. Maybe you hear voices and you have been carrying that and not wanting to talk about that because you have a fear that people will lock you away. The reality is most states have laws regarding personal safety, and you have to put a professional in a position where they believe that you're incapable of managing your own safety to be locked away. You cannot be locked away just for admitting symptoms. It has to be a lot more than that. That is a myth. Talking doesn't do anything. That is a myth. I've heard people all the time say, "Why am I going to go to therapy? I could talk to my family about what I'm going through." Well, it's a little bit different. This isn't just talking without a purpose. We're highly trained professionals. We're taught to look for solutions and not be problem focused. We're taught to hold space. We're taught to practice unconditional positive regard. We're taught to see what other people can't see. It's more than just a conversation happening. There is connectivity, there's safety happening. We're getting some of those feel good hormones to increase. We're providing you a space to start to reprocess and rebuild some of those areas of your life that has been broken down. So it's more than just talking. That's a myth. Talking your truth is betraying your family or friends. That is a myth. Just because you get in a space like therapy and you talk about what you're going through, and it might make someone you love not look so good. So you might feel like you're betraying them. That is a myth. You can love someone at the same time and admit how they hurt you in therapy. And I'm going to talk about confidentiality later, but there is legally an element in therapy called confidentiality. Legally, we cannot discuss what's happening in therapy unless we are subpoenaed, unless there's child abuse, elder abuse, or someone is in imminent danger. We call that duty to warn. So if you make a threat to harm someone else, we have to breach confidentiality. Or if you make a threat to harm yourself, then we have to breach confidentiality. But I always say this, there is nothing new under the sun. There's nothing I have not heard coming from the couch that's across from me to me. I've heard people talk about their sexuality, their religion, the things they see and hear, their relationships, affairs. There are a lot of things that I have heard, and I don't judge people because that is the type of training that I have. I create a space where people can bring their shadow. The shadow is where you hide things that you don't want other people to know. And you cannot heal if you don't go to the shadow. If you just bring your representative to therapy, you're not working on anything. And that's usually what shows up in our daily lives, our representative. And that's why therapy is different and it's more than just a conversation. Trauma from the past doesn't impact today. I hear a lot of people say, "I'm not talking about the past. That's in the past. We're going to leave it there. And we're not going to deal with that." And honestly, when you ignore what has happened to you, you reinforce for some of those things to keep happening because you're not getting to the source of the issue and really dealing with it. So it's like really putting a rug over the dirt or sweeping the dirt under the rug, as most people say, but you're not really dealing with the issue. You are just really suppressing it. Another myth is prayer is enough. God is good. The Bible is extremely powerful. Prayer is impeccable. But sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes people are clinically depressed, they are seriously mentally ill, it is not demonic, and it is an issue of their chemical makeup. Sometimes it's biological, and they need medical professionals to help them through that. God can use medical professionals to touch people. I've heard a lot of people in the church say things like, it's nothing wrong with this person. They just need God. God is a part of the equation, but God will use people to help people through very tough situations. Um, you don't have enough faith. So sometimes you refusing to get support, you use it as a star on your paper to show how faithful you are, to show how committed you are to God if you don't have to use anybody else but Him. But as I said before, God can use professionals to help you get over the hump. And God cannot order steps you are not taking. I spoke at a women's conference this past weekend, and it was with a church. And we were talking from the book of Luke, chapter 8, verse 43 through 44. And that's the story of the woman with the issue of blood. And one of the most profound things in that story was the woman with the issue of blood had to go to Jesus to get the help that she needed. She had to do something. And that's what mental health is. You have to do something to help yourself. You have to do more than just sit there and suffer. You have to reach out to what you know and who you know can help you. And that is God. And sometimes that is God through someone like myself. Um, Mental illness is the work of the devil. That is a myth. And I kind of addressed that already. Black people don't complete suicide, or any other BIPOC group, Black, Indigenous, and people of color group, don't complete suicide. That is a myth. Black people do take their lives. In fact, that percentage has increasingly grown within the last 10 years. And I really think it's more than that because it goes undocumented and unreported. Usually, when Black people commit suicide, we have a funeral and we're very quiet about the cause of death. No one's talking about what happened. That's how you know it's suicide, because that level of shame that's there because of the stigma related to dying by suicide. Therapists tell you what to do. That is a myth. We do not tell you what to do. We make recommendations, we highlight solutions, we point out patterns. We may even create a new pattern and motivate you to plug in that new pattern, but we don't tell you what to do. One of the main reasons why we try not to tell clients what to do, because if we tell you to do something and that fails or doesn't work, it's going to impact the relationship you have with your therapist. I make it very clear to my clients that I'm not all knowing, but I'm all learning. And I just say what I see. And I even give my clients room to disagree with me. If they tell me, no, Janae, I don't think that's quite what it is, I listen to them and I adjust what I'm doing. So it's not like we are all knowing and we're telling you what to do and we're going to fix that problem just because we're therapists. That's not how it works. Be careful about watching TV and reality TV shows and all of these therapists or these celebrity therapists. Some of them are highly trained and highly effective, but a lot of it is for your entertainment and it's not coming from a realistic place. It's sensationalized, but therapy doesn't look how it looks on TV. Another myth is that counseling can fix my children. We might help your children. We might be planting the seed. You might be the one watering that seed. That flower might blossom later on in life. But therapists don't fix children. Children are not broken. You know, children are developing. They're supposed to test boundaries. They're supposed to break a few rules. They may have mental health conditions, but that doesn't mean they're broken. That idea that people are broken is a part of what keeps the stigma there. It's a part of why we label people crazy. People are not broken. Pencils break, not people. People just need to develop skills to deal with their symptoms or what they're experiencing in their life. Another myth is strong people don't need therapy. That is a myth. Therapy is not the idea that strong people don't need therapy fully supports that people who go to therapy are weak. And that is a myth. So no, everybody needs therapy. Your therapist needs therapists. The heart surgeon needs therapists. Some of the most powerful attorneys in the world needs therapists. Celebrities need therapists. Janitors need therapists. Everybody needs someone who can create a safe space for them where they can bounce off ideas and get different perspectives without feeling like they're bad, broken, or weak. Everybody deserves that. Another myth: therapists and clients become best friends. While I do have strong connections with a lot of my clients, they might even feel like I'm their best friend. You kind of want to refrain from categorizing your relationship with your therapist just as you would a sister, a friend, a cousin, or any kind of other relationship dynamic, because when you intertwine or confuse the style of relationship it is, sometimes you get the sense that your therapist will have expectations like them. So if you start seeing me as a best friend, you might think my expectations are like your best friend, and then you might stop bringing things to me. You might stop being honest. You might stop opening up to me, and that's problematic. It's a very unique relationship. Sometimes I find it hard to explain what it is. I am I always tell my clients, I'm getting in the boat with you and I'm going to help you row. I am the facilitator. I am in the friend category, but I'm not your best friend. And friend in the sense that you can trust me. Friend in the sense that you can show me your wounds and I won't judge you for it. But not friend in the sense that you can keep me in your back pocket and come to me at any time. And now I kind of feel like a family member and you don't feel safe with me anymore with your shadow. So it is a myth that therapists are best friends. We're good people, we're safe people, but we're not best friends. Therapists and clients, therapists have ready-made solutions for all of life's problems. I treat everybody like a blank slate, and I even treat most sessions like a blank slate. I know what my clients are working toward, but there's such a beautiful surprise in each moment when I let the moment teach me what it needs. I pay attention to what my client is saying, their body language, their tone, and I point out what maybe they're not paying attention to. And sometimes I offer something new that wasn't even something that they thought would come up. And this is why we are trained to do what we do. Like there's no premeditated outcome. You put your best foot forward in each moment, and that could look different every session. um, Therapists blame a client's problem on their upbringing. That is a myth that everything that's wrong with a person is because of their upbringing or their childhood. And we're not going to blame it on your childhood. Some people had beautiful childhoods and don't have or any recognizable childhood trauma. We don't just go around saying everybody has childhood trauma. Some people don't. Some people have work related stress or work related trauma. Some people have adulthood trauma. You know, it didn't stem in childhood. Sometimes we help people to recognize that they do have childhood trauma because they have been so disassociated they never even knew. Or maybe trauma has been so normalized that even in their family, it's technically not trauma because it didn't impact them pervasively. So it is a myth that we just want to go straight to your childhood and label you with childhood trauma. Not everybody is coming to therapy to deal with trauma or childhood trauma for all that matters. So those are myths that we commonly hear. I know you probably are familiar with some of them. Some of them you may have not been familiar with, but they are myths. They are not true and they're not based on reality. So I have a question. Let's have a dialogue. What are some reasons that you have not tried therapy yet? Somebody try me. Somebody be vulnerable. Type it in the comments, text it to 910-444-1698. What are some reasons that you yourself have not tried therapy yet? And I didn't put this disclaimer out there. Therapy is one way to deal with mental health issues. In today's world, there are so many ways. You can get medication, you can get a life coach, you can get a nutrition coach. They have so many different types of coaches now, a relationship coach. Um, you can go to a psychologist and get psychological testing done. You can see a psychiatrist, that's who prescribes medicine. Your MD or primary care physician might prescribe you medication to deal with mental health symptoms. If you have a neurologist on board, there's so nurse practitioners right now. That is the new wave, and they are highly, highly effective. I love me a good nurse practitioner because most of them are fresh out of school. They're spry, they're energetic. I know a lot of clients will say things. I don't want to see no nurse. Well, Sometimes nurses are highly effective. So there are many different avenues you can take to get mental health support. And then there's the informal ways. So, through church, through counseling, group therapy, couples therapy, teen groups, all types of ways you can deal with your mental health. So nobody wants to be brave enough and type in the chat and share what are some reasons why they haven't tried therapy. That's okay. I'll tell you what I've heard. Some of those myths, they just don't feel safe. I've heard some people can't afford it. They cannot afford to get therapy. They don't have health insurance. Some people can't find a therapist that looks like them. That's why they're not doing therapy. Some people feel like therapy is fake. We can't really help. Why do I need to see a therapist? Some people are so depressed and so hopeless, they don't think anything can help them. And I will also say this disclaimer: therapy isn't for everybody. Therapy is not the first go to approach for people who are seriously mentally ill. A lot of times they need medication to get stabilized, and then they need to try therapy. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some don'ts. And then I am going to talk about some do's. So we will talk about do's and don'ts. Here are some don'ts. And I want you guys to really pay close attention to these don'ts when it comes to therapy. And these are very personal. Some of these I've experienced myself, and some I've seen happen. But don't friend request your therapist on Facebook or privately message them on their personal Facebook accounts or watch their stories. I'll tell you why. Um, we're not supposed to have dual relationships with our clients because that messes up the therapeutic alliance, and it may make it hard for you to be vulnerable and talk about your shadow. Also, therapists are humans. We have personal lives. We don't want to mix our personal lives with our professional lives. Sometimes people do inbox me who knows me and they may ask mental health questions. I don't mind answering those questions. But people who are not my friends that find me and inbox me and start asking me about therapy, that is not the best way to connect with me for services or any therapist for that matter. And I'll talk about what to do, but avoid their personal Facebooks and Instagram accounts for therapy services. Don't pop up at an office if you haven't made an appointment. Sometimes if agencies are not answering the phone, that usually means they're very overwhelmed and they probably don't have available appointments. Don't give up your search. Just keep looking, but don't pop up at the office unless you have an appointment. Um, don't not know your co-insurance deductible or co-payments amounts before sessions. Okay, so there's a question. It says, and I'm going to pause and then come back to that. What if you tried therapy but didn't find the therapist as effective? Ooh, I'm going to talk about that. But I will say this: don't give up, because you got to think of it from this perspective. Let's say you have a physical health condition. Let's say that you go to a doctor and that doctor couldn't help with that physical health condition. You wouldn't give up on taking care of yourself. You would find a doctor that can help. That's the same approach you need to take with therapists. Keep looking until you find a good fit. That is my short answer without getting ahead. So yeah, call your insurance company. See how much mental health services cost. Call that member services number. Say, hey, I'm thinking about going to get outpatient therapy services. Sometimes they call it behavioral health. Sometimes they call it mental health services. And say, I want to know if I have a deductible that applies, if I have a copayment, or if I have co-insurance. And they will tell you. So that way, going into your therapy sessions, you already know how much you will have to pay out of pocket, if any at all. Don't no call, no show your therapy appointments. Your therapist is adjusting their schedules to show up for you. Yes, things happen, and you might find yourself in a position where you can't call, you can't help in an emergency. But in situations where you can help it, give your therapist a call, leave them a voicemail, send them an email, text them if they allow that. Tell them you can't make it. So that way you can get rescheduled. No call, no shows sometimes communicate that you're not ready. And as I said, a lot of offices are very overwhelmed and they're booked. So when you no call, no show, there is somebody in the wings ready for healing and ready to take your spot. So try not to no call, no show. Try not to start therapy when you are not ready. There is a level of readiness and commitment that goes into wanting to be vulnerable, wanting to find that safe space. And sometimes you're just not there yet. Maybe you need a few more conversations. Maybe you need to do a little bit more research. But when you start therapy prematurely, when you're not ready, um, end up finding yourself having to stop. And then sometimes that communicates that you're a failure because you simply couldn't get through that process. But it wasn't that you failed at trying to seek out therapy services, just wasn't a good time. And I'll talk about readiness a little bit more in the next slide. And I'm going to take a pause and look at some of these questions here. How do you find the right therapist? Okay, so finding the right therapist would also require you to get very clear about what the problem is. So maybe you're someone who's dealing with work stress. If it's work stress, you want to specifically hunt someone who maybe specializes in work stress. And I'll tell you a website you can use for that. There are some therapists like myself. I consider myself a generalist. I have niche down. My niche is that I am a generalist. I meet the client where they are. And if it's an issue that I feel like I can help with, I screen them out and I will work with them. If it's someone who I feel like I cannot work with during my screening, I will refer them out. So I work with pretty much everything other than serious mental illness. And the only reason why, or in substance use, the only reason why I don't do those two, I don't feel like my office is equipped to handle those populations. So I don't do them a disservice by bringing them in here. But everything else I can kind of work with just depending on the symptoms and how it's showing up in their life. But you want to identify the problem, then you can identify someone who specializes in that problem. Another question here says, okay, and that's the same question twice. Okay. All right. Another don't. Try not to treat therapy like a chore. This is for you. It's similar to getting a pedicure, it's similar to going to your favorite concert, it's similar to going to a checkup to make sure that you're in good health. I always say this, when you are in therapy, it's like going to school and you are the subject. You're getting very clear about you, who you are, what's happening underneath the surface. And if you treat it like, I just got to get through this and check it off my list, you're not going to stay very motivated. You're going to be very demotivated. You're not going to want to do it. So try not to treat it like a chore. It's a part of a lifestyle, and that lifestyle is building a life that's worth living. Not let me do this so I can just check this off the box on my paper. Another don't participate in therapy for clout or for social media content. I know with social media, we got the hashtags, everybody's trying to monetize social media, and a lot of times people, for the lack of a better term, will play with therapy. Mental health is real. Therapists are real professionals. And I am not in the business of meeting with a person for the sake of meeting. You can do that for free on your own time. I really am in the business for making progress. I want you to heal. It's not about getting rich. Like, I really want you to get better. I feel invigorated and validated when my clients are healing and they are doing better. I do not feel invigorated and validated because your followers went up. A lot of people like to announce, oh, I'm in therapy, self-care this, self-care that. I'm not impressed by that. And that's a huge distraction from actually healing. So try not to get into therapy for clout because it's sensationalized and it's the hip, cool thing to do. There are a lot of people that really need help, and you're probably taking up a space if this is you. And I'm not judging you if this is you. If you're listening to me and this is you, just try to do a little bit better. Just try to do a little bit better. Don't withhold your thoughts and feelings from your therapist about services. Well, what do I mean by that? Sometimes you may not be happy with your therapist. Sometimes you didn't like what they say. I actually had a client tell me one time, Janae, I feel like you're judging me. And this is how I operate in therapy. If you point out something to me, I always ask myself, what is it that I've done? Or how am I showing up where that is your interpretation of me? I hold myself accountable for what part of the problem might be me. And I had to ask myself, Janae, what did you say or do that might have made this client feel judgmental? I didn't immediately say, no, I'm not judging her. I had to ask myself that, I had to deal with me as a therapist. And then I'm also very conscious about making sure whatever that is that I identify that I don't repeat. Um, and that's the type of relationship you should be able to have with your therapist. You should be able to call them out and then not tear up the relationship. And you got to find a new therapist or they fall apart. I have to model emotion regulation. I have to model how to problem solve for you. So when you bring problems to me, I'm going to handle them in the right way so that way you can see that I'm practicing what I preach. So, don't withhold things like that from your therapist. Tell them the truth about what kind of services they're providing. And honestly, if more people out there would be honest about the quality of therapy that they're getting, the world will have better therapists. Because remember, therapists are human. And there are good therapists, there are bad therapists, there are therapists that need to go back to school, there are therapists that need more training, there are therapists who think they have arrived. And it's you and your accountability, or you holding us accountable, that makes us work harder and be better and do better. And honestly, that's across the board for all medical professionals, not just therapists, but even doctors. If your doctor is doing something that you find unprofessional or uncomfortable, don't suffer in silence. Speak up, say something. Um, don't try to take care of your therapist. Therapy is for you. I tell my clients all the time, don't worry about my life, my schedule, what I got going on. This is for you. Tell me what you need without trying to consider my needs. This is especially hard for those people with chronic helping syndrome. They come into therapy and they're trying to take care of me, and I have to encourage them to pump the brakes. This is not for me. This is for you. So don't go into therapy trying to take care of your therapist. Therapy is a very self-centered process. It is all about you. And I know a lot of people are not used to that, but it is all about you. Learn to receive the care that you're getting in therapy without resisting it. Um, don't try to establish a relationship outside of therapy services with your therapist. We're not supposed to have a dual relationship. We're not best friends. Don't privately message your therapist. Don't try to invite them out for lunch or brunch. It's very hard to do, especially with BIPOC, because we have kinship tendencies. We want to connect. We want to eat together, especially with people who make us feel safe. But you got to resist that urge. Try not to invite your therapist out outside of therapy sessions. And also, don't text them all times a night. Use the therapy hour to take full advantage of their attention and time. Outside of therapy, that's where you do the work in your real life. But just keep some very clear boundaries with your therapist. Um, don't continue services with a provider that you don't feel safe with. Um, Maybe the unsafety that you're feeling is just because of their tone. Maybe it's their body language that triggers you. Maybe they remind you of someone who has traumatized you. It's not their fault that you are traumatized, but you are traumatized or uncomfortable or just don't like the energy in their office. I ask my clients all the time, do you feel safe here? Is this a place you feel like you come to every week? And most of the time they say yes, but if you don't like fluorescent lights, that means you shouldn't be in an office that has fluorescent lights. Don't be in spaces where you don't feel safe. So now I want to talk about signs of readiness. I bet you didn't know you needed to be ready for therapy. Now there's some signs of readiness outside of this list, but these are the ones that I've identified. Um, do you have time, about 45 to 60 minutes every week or bi-weekly, to commit to therapy? If your life is already chaotic, you're squeezing things on your calendar, you probably don't have time for therapy. And what's going to happen is, if you schedule an appointment before being ready because you haven't adjusted your schedule, you're going to be doing that no call, no show that I talked about. Get very clear about the time you can dedicate to therapy. And you shouldn't be doing therapy while you have your children. You should have childcare arranged. You shouldn't be doing therapy while you're at work. If you're doing telehealth, you should not be doing it while you're driving. It needs to be a time where you have very minimal distractions. Um, you are ready to be in therapy when you are very curious about you, when you keep asking yourself these questions, well, why am I like this? I notice that I keep getting with the same kind of guy. I keep getting with the same kind of girl. My heart has been broken like 5 times now. Or I can't seem to stop doing this thing that's hurting me. When you get extremely curious and you just keep thinking about the why, it's probably time to sit down with someone to kind of help you sort through the weeds of that situation. You have negative symptoms. Well, negative symptoms are where certain behaviors have decreased, especially if they're contributing to your wellness. So that means sleep has decreased, eating has decreased, your functionality overall has decreased. That's a negative symptom. When you're doing things that you're supposed to be doing a lot less, that's when you probably want to reach out for help. Not because, and sometimes you might have to reach out for help when you're not quite ready. I'm going to talk about that at the end. Because negative symptoms, when you're not functioning properly, can manifest or grow into something worse. So that's why you want to reach out when you have negative symptoms. You can't stop thinking about fixing the problem. You're probably ready. You have resources, insurance to cover the service. So you don't have to really worry about how you're going to pay for it. It's so hard to start therapy and then realize you can't afford it. And unfortunately, and I struggle with this being a beginning therapist. If I could, I would give therapy away for free to everybody. But it just doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, therapists have rent, we have insurance, we have conferences, we have trainings, and I can't, and other things that we have to pay for. If I could give therapy away for free and survive and go on vacation every now and then, I would do it. I really would. But that's just not feasible. So we do have to have a rate. And we do have to have procedures and policies and some clear boundaries around that. There are some agencies that give scholarships. Sometimes you will find agencies, particularly religious based, that will do pro bono services, and they do have licensed professionals even at these religious based agencies. You just kind of have to look around. I know most areas have 211. Call 211 to see what they have for free. And sometimes you can ask your therapist, do you have a sliding scale based on your income? I know a lot of therapists, if you have Medicaid or you're living below the poverty line, they do have a reduced rate for you. So sometimes you just have to call. Another sign that you are ready is um, you can get to an office. You have transportation. You have internet technology access to those things. You can commit to the process, to a process that's unpredictable. You don't know how therapy is going to pan out, but you're ready to do it anyway. I meet a lot of people when they're starting out therapy. They have a lot of anxiety and they ask a lot of questions. They resist signing the intake paperwork. They ask about everything, and I'm okay with that because I understand that it's new, it's scary. You don't quite understand what you're getting into, but sometimes it's too scary, and that asking and I guess kind of delaying the process to me might be a sign that maybe you need to take a step back and figure out if this is something you're really ready to do because it might be too overwhelming. All right, so that those are signs that you're ready. So now I want to talk about some do's. We talked about the don'ts, some readiness. Now, what can you do? Or what should you do? Show up on time. Be there on time. And a few minutes late is fine. But don't show up 15 minutes late, 30 minutes late. I'll tell you what happens. When you show up late, I'm still going to give you 60 minutes. So if you show up 30 minutes late, then you got 30 minutes. Now, I know some therapists say if their policy says if you're 15 minutes late, that's it. It's considered a no call, no show, and they will not allow you to finish your time. But if you show up late, my policy is I will just give you the time you have remaining. And primarily because I probably got a client right after you. And depending on the day, I might allow you to get a full hour if I have no one after, but that's very, very rare. Very rare. Do message and follow business accounts. It's okay to inbox a business page or a page that specifically looks like it's for professional services. Inbox them, follow them, share them, do that. It's the personal accounts that I was talking about. Tell the truth about everything. We've heard it all. Tell the scary, ugly things that make you cry in the shower alone that you can't tell anybody else. That's what you do share. Give input about how you would like therapy to go. If you know you like music and dancing, tell your therapist that. Your therapist can incorporate music and dancing. If you know you are someone who doesn't like talking a lot, I literally have a client, we write. We write. Sometimes we text, but she likes to write and I let her do that. So you get to advocate for how therapy services looks. Now your therapist can say, unfortunately, I can't accommodate that. Sometimes they can. Most of the time we can. Especially if it's just incorporating something small like journaling or dancing or music or even art inspired therapy. We can make those kind of adjustments. Therapy is yours. You own it. You get to tell us what you want. We are facilitators and we are the ones to make sure that best practices are happening. So it's a fusion of your desire and what best practices says we're supposed to be doing. You should find a good fit for you. Find a therapist that works for your problems. And if it doesn't fit, you got to move on. Follow all instructions in order to get to the couch. Usually, when therapists or when my clients sit on my couch, I say, "You made it to the couch." And the reason why I say that, it is a process. Like, you got to figure out if I take your insurance, you got to reach out to me. Sometimes I miss your call, I got to call you back. Then we talk. I screen you out. Then you got to sign the intake paperwork electronically. I got to verify your insurance. You got to put a card on file. Then once there's a card on file, I give you an appointment. You say that works for me. And then you got to rearrange your life so you can get here on time. So when you get to the couch, it is a process. So you have to follow those instructions. Because in my process, if you don't allow me to screen you out, then you're not going to get to the next step. If you don't sign those intake paperworks, you won't get to the next step. In fact, my intake paperwork is electronic. So if you can't sign electronic documents, then I can't service you. We are a paperless agency. And unfortunately, we don't do paper intakes because of HIPAA laws. I don't have the right resources here to keep documents safe. So that's why it's electronic. It's not because it's the cheapest route. It's really the safest route and it's in alignment with the laws. So I have had clients to say, I don't want to do that. And I'll tell them, thank you for reaching out, but I don't think we'll be a good fit. Um, and usually, if they really want to see me, they will, I guess, figure it out. Or sometimes we have had to part ways, and I don't label them as bad clients or difficult people. They have a right to choose someone who has paper intake forms, and I have a right to say my process is electronic only. So just make sure you're following the instructions to get to the couch. Welcome challenges from your therapist. We're not warm, fuzzy people that will just be yes people and let you say and do whatever you want. We're not going to please you. There's going to be a balance. It's called irreverence, it's called compassionate confrontation. Once I've built a rapport with you and I've made you feel safe, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to point out some things that I'm seeing, but I am going to confront you. I would be remiss if I did not in therapy. Your therapist will be remiss if they don't call you out on some things. Think about it. If you are going to get into therapy only for your therapist to be a yes man, you can not have therapy and continue to talk to friends and family that do that to you for free. So do expect to be challenged. And the first time you get challenged, it might be a little uncomfortable, but that's not evidence that you need a new therapist or that you're not in the right place. Anytime you feel uncomfortable, that's usually because a little bit of growth is happening. So sit in it and just wait it out and hang in there. Um, Ask questions. Ask questions. Ask all questions. You can ask your therapist, why did you ask me that question? Or you can ask your therapist, what were you thinking about what I just shared with you? It's okay for you to reflect back to your therapist any thoughts or curiosities you have. I'm gonna tell you, I love that. I like an intuitive, curious client. It gives me more to work with. I know you're engaged and I know you're in it with me, and I'm not by myself working harder than you are. So I want you to be curious and I want you to ask me questions. Um, Ask about your treatment plan. So, whenever we are diagnosing people and we get them in our couch, it's more than dialogue. I'm listening to figure out what plan I need to design for you to get you to your goal. So, when you start therapy, we always ask for a goal. And then my job is to help to work on realistic objectives that you can realistically execute and get you to your goal. So your goal is at the top of the staircase And each step is an objective that I help you create for you to get there. Ask your therapist, hey, what does my treatment plan look like? How long do you think I'm going to be in therapy? Do you think it's going to take a long time? How many objectives do I have? What do my objectives look like? Um, what evidence do you need to see to think that I'm making progress? It's totally okay to ask these kind of questions. The treatment doesn't belong to the therapist, the treatment belongs to you, and you need to know what the plan is. Participate. Don't just come to therapy and sit on the couch and look around. Now, I know there are different types of personalities, and some people are shyer than others, and it may take a while to warm up. But if you give your therapist nothing to work with, then there's nothing to work with. So just participate as best as you can. Treat therapists like you would treat doctors. Like, we are diagnosing you, so you would go to your doctor and you would willingly tell your doctor where you're having pain. You would tell them the symptoms that you're having. So do that for therapists as well. A lot of people forget that we're diagnosing. So we need as much data from the expert, which is you, to make sure that we're giving a proper diagnosis. Report therapists to the licensing board who you feel have abused or violated you. Unfortunately, some therapists can be unsafe, and I have read a lot of cases where therapists have sexually, financially, and all other leads taken advantage of their clients. Each state has a licensing board for mental health professionals, and if you feel like you have been violated, you can report them. A lot of states have hefty fines. Licenses can be revoked, taken away, suspended, and we will be held accountable. So don't feel too powerless if you feel like you've been taken advantage of by a therapist. All right. So I am just going to move along a little bit faster because I realize the time is escaping us. But I have a question. If anybody feels brave enough to answer in the chat, what are some reasons that you have not tried therapy yet? What are some reasons? And while you guys are thinking about if you're going to be brave enough to answer that, I'm going to move on. And as I see the question pop in, I'll move back. Well, here's some expectations about therapy. This is what you should expect. You should expect to get good care. Yes, you deserve good care. Expect to be diagnosed. A diagnosis is essentially answering the question, what's wrong with me? And sometimes when you get that answer, it's so validating because you realize, wait a minute, it's not me. There's something else happening here that's contributed to what I'm feeling and my symptoms. Expect to be respected. Expect that your therapist will practice cultural humility and respect you for your differences, respect you for the color of your skin, respect you for the line of work you're in, even if you are in a line of work that's socially unacceptable. Your therapist will respect you. Expect openness. We're going to ask those real deep, direct questions. So expect that. Expect a safe environment. Expect support. Expect meaningful conversation and processing, not that surface level. How you doing today? Good, good. The sun is shining bright. It's warm out. The weather is good. No, we're gonna do a deep dive. We're gonna dive deep into those issues to get to the heart of what's happening. Um, Expect someone who is interested in you. I'm so interested in my clients. I light up every time a client comes in and I get to investigate, well, what has changed since the last time I saw you. I really love that. Someone who sees you. I tell my clients all the time, I've only been talking to you for about 4 months now, and I think I got you kind of figured out. You haven't got you figured out yet? Sometimes I'll ask that question because I know what I expect you to do based on what I've seen you do in scenarios similar to this. So you're gonna find someone who can start to read you like a book because we are studying you. We're not that we know you so well that we know everything you're going to do, but we know you well enough where we understand your patterns and your fears and your insecurities, so we know how you will move having those things. Expect someone who cares. Expect a good listener. We got to listen good if we want to get the problem good. Someone you can feel comfortable with. Expect that therapy may not start until the second or third session. That first couple of sessions, we're kind of looking under the hood so we can diagnose you properly. Um, you don't just right out the gate start therapy, because what problem are we working on if we haven't really clearly defined it together as a team? So sometimes it takes 1 to 3 sessions for that to happen. The therapist is human too. Expect that. Sometimes I do run late. Sometimes I'm 5 minutes behind, but it's rare. And I do text my clients when I'm running behind. I've had some clients be absolutely understanding. I've had other clients tell me it's unacceptable. But even when it's unacceptable, like I said, I hold myself accountable. I try to get there on time. I don't get mad at the client for not giving me grace. I would love grace though, because if my client is 5 minutes late, I give grace. But I understand there are some personalities where 5 minutes late um, doesn't feel good to them. They don't like that. It's unacceptable. So I rise to their occasion, and I should be on time. All right, here's some facts just to kind of counter act those myths. Telling your story is incredibly healing. That's why you want a therapist. Keeping secrets about trauma reinforces more trauma. So if you want some of those generational curses to stop or transgenerational trauma to stop, then you got to start talking about it so that way you can come up with solutions, and your children can see you living out those solutions and stop those patterns. Unresolved trauma impacts relationships. When you're constantly living in fear and worry, it's hard to have healthy connections with other humans. So you want to deal with that. Religion alone cannot be the only treatment for clinical anxiety, depression, and serious mental illness. It could be a start, but sometimes God will use a licensed professionals to help people who are really dealing with some heavy mental health issues. Therapy helps us to live a life worth living. That is the goal of therapy. Suffering is inevitable, but sometimes life feels unbearable. Therapy is that cushion that encourages you and motivates you that you can survive it and you can do it, because it gives you hope perspectives that just invigorates you, motivates you, and gives you the fighting power to keep going when you want to give up. Um, Recovery is possible. Yes, people have recovered under the right circumstances with resilient support, which is something I learned from someone who was struggling with a lot of mental health conditions. He said he was as resilient as his support. So, therapists, we have to be resilient to help you guys who are dealing with very tough things get over what you're dealing with. The fastest way to heal is through medication and therapy. And what I mean by that, therapy is impactful by itself. But if you want to get to healing faster, research shows that therapy with medication gets you there faster. Um, you are allowed to have a preference for the type of therapist you want. That's a fact. If you want a therapist that looks like you, if you prefer a male, if you prefer a female, if you prefer an older adult, if you prefer a younger adult, if you prefer therapy where you move your body, you get to decide what type of therapist you want. You just got to find that person. Um, you can ask for a free consultation. That's just like taking a car for a test drive. Any therapist, before you actually start services, ask for a 15-minute consultation and be prepared to ask questions. So I want to talk about stigma a little bit. Stigma is negative beliefs about people with mental illness or mental illness in general. So we got to reduce the stigma around getting help. And the way that we can reduce that is by simply monitoring our own behavior. So we got to believe other people when they say that they're hurting or that they're experiencing mental health symptoms. Believe them, listen to them. Refrain from negative thoughts about others related to their mental health. Be kind. Practice radical self acceptance. Because if you practice radical self acceptance, you'd be okay with you making mistakes, and you won't stigmatize yourself. You won't say negative things about yourself. You'll give yourself a little bit of grace. Speak up and share your story about suffering. The more you talk about what you're going through, the more you normalize it. And the more these things are normalized, the more stigma decreases. Um, Everyone suffers. Research shows it used to be 1 in 5, and now we're at about 1 in 4 people that have some type of mental health condition. So it's pretty common. It's pretty common. So everyone is suffering. So that's normalcy right there. And work through your own shame. Shame is why we shame other people. Shame is why we do it in silence. Shame is why we make other people feel bad when they are experiencing the same thing we're experiencing, but we're just silent about it. So we have to work through the shame. The very last slide of education that I want to share are some key terms. And I know this is a lot of information. Just hang in there with me. Continuity of care. Continuity of care says that we must prepare for the end and the beginning. And that means that we must have a plan that demonstrates that care is consistent, scheduled, and you can expect when it's going to happen. So, a part of my treatment plan, I may say I'm going to see you weekly, bi weekly, or monthly. Sometimes I may say weekly to bi-weekly and then eventually monthly. If in my treatment plan I have bi-weekly, but you've no called, no show 2 or 3 times, we now lack continuity of care because you're not in alignment with that treatment plan. And when you're not in alignment with continuity of care, that is considered non-compliance, and we have to close you out. And non-compliance is on the list. Non-compliance is when you are not in alignment with what has been recommended for treatment by the professional. That is non-compliant. So a treatment plan, we kind of talked about that, and that's exactly what it is: a plan for the treatment that you're going to get. In your first session, first 1 2 sessions, within the first 30 days, we have to do what's called a biopsychosocial assessment. We're looking at your biological history, your social history, and your psychological history, and we're getting all that information to help us support the treatment we're going to give. I sometimes use that data to support the diagnosis, but really the diagnosing really comes from the symptoms in your presenting problem that you share. But the biopsychosocial assessment guides treatment. So I will use the biopsychosocial assessment to build a good treatment plan along with the client. Discharge. We have to prepare for the end and the beginning, especially with managed care, which is care being managed by insurance companies. They don't like us to keep you guys in therapy forever. They want to know that you have an intended end in mind. So unfortunately, a lot of therapists, we don't like this because I personally don't feel like some issues we can put a time limit on. And it's unpredictable, but we do our best to predict it. Termination is when we're ending services. You should be prepared for termination. Unless there's an emergency, no therapist should just abruptly end services. You should be transitioned into that and transition out properly with the plan in place. Um, Presenting problem is the reason why you came into therapy, and that is what we're going to use to diagnose you. Um, Progress. We are monitoring how closely you're moving toward achieving your goal. Sometimes there's no progress, minimal, moderate progress, satisfactory progress. Sometimes there's regression where you have actually moved backwards. But that is what your therapist should be monitoring every time you come into therapy. And then there's diagnosing, and I already talked about that. Diagnosing is answering the question, what is wrong with me? Consent. You have to consent to treatment. You have to consent to being diagnosed. You have to consent to agreeing to coming in bi-weekly, weekly. You need to sign consent forms. If you have not signed a consent form, it's highly likely that you're not in treatment properly. So if you have not signed a consent form to read what the expectations are, then your therapist has not started out on a good foot. But most people who do have consent forms. And self-determination, that means you get to determine what's best for yourself and how you want treatment to go. You get to speak up for yourself. And legally, you have the right to self-determine. Disclosure, that is where your therapist voluntarily shares with you things about themselves, like their license, how long they've been working, their therapeutic philosophy, um, maybe if they're affiliated with any other organizations. So you can decide, do I want to work with someone who's affiliated with this organization or not? But your therapist should have a disclosure statement sharing their professional background. So you have full knowledge of who you're going into therapy with. Release of information, because therapy is confidential and we can't just share with anybody. You must sign a release of information form anytime your records are shared, or anytime you want your therapist to talk to anybody about your care at all, we can neither confirm nor deny that we're seeing anybody. So I know a lot of times my clients are like, can you send this paper? Can you sign this and send this over? No, you got to sign a release of information and give me permission. And what I have even started to do is, even though you sign a release of information, I only give my clients that information and let them share with whoever they want. I don't give it to other people because I don't want it. I don't know where it's going to go. I can't control it. But if I give it to you, it's yours. You own it. You get to take it wherever you want it to go. And then confidentiality, which I already spoke about. So a few more slides. So ask questions. Here are some good questions to ask. Take pictures of this. So maybe you're somebody who's looking for a therapist. These are good questions to ask. What are your areas of expertise? What type of interventions or modalities do you use? And depending on what they say when they answer that, you can go research and see, well, how does this intervention work with what I think I'm dealing with? How long have you been practicing? You want to know how long your therapist has been therapizing people. What is your therapeutic philosophy? So, what do they believe about therapy and people and how it works? What is your ideal client? That's an excellent question, because if your therapist's ideal client looks nothing like you, then you might be in the wrong place. What do you think would be the best way to approach my problem or my presenting problem? How long do clients normally stay under your care? Do you also offer coaching services? Some people don't want to be diagnosed. And keep this in mind, if you go through insurance, you have to be diagnosed. So, coaching might be an option for you if you don't want to be diagnosed. So, if you could start off with a therapist, and then transition into their coaching services, that might be a good route for you. Or if you start off with coaching and then maybe transition into counseling services, that might be an option for you. Do you assign homework? Some people want homework, some people don't want homework. So I have a call to action for you. Therapists are like shoes. We don't fit everybody. You got to find your right fit. You got to find the person that feels comfortable for you. You got to find the shoes you can walk in and be vulnerable in. Don't give up. Like I said, if you found a doctor that couldn't handle your issue, you wouldn't give up on the issue. You keep finding the doctor who could help you with that issue. So find the right fit. If you don't have a therapist, my call to action to you tonight is find one. Um, we are all over the place. There are so many people in school right now. So we just had a lot of graduates. They're about to get pre-licensed. They're about to start doing this work. So there are people out there that want to help you. So I want to check for understanding, like I always do. I don't see a lot of activity in the chat, but I want to do a true and false. If the answer is true, put T. If it's false, put F. True or false? Therapists are like shoes. Is that true or false? That is true. We don't fit everybody. We come in different shapes, sizes, colors, and you got to find the one that works for you. True or false? Shame is not an issue when it comes to people suffering in silence. That is false. We know that people suffer in silence because they are ashamed. It is okay to inbox a therapist on their personal page. Is that true or false? That is false. You want to message them through the business page, not the personal page. True or false? Hiding the truth about you will help you heal faster. That is false. Actually, if you hide the truth, you're only going to create more trauma, a trauma cycle. True or false? We need increased positive thoughts about mental health. That is true. Stigma is a cluster of negative thoughts about mental health. We need more positive thoughts around mental health care and what it actually does. True or false? Therapy does not require readiness. That is false. All right, so that is all I have for you guys today. I do have the QR codes for my book. We'll run through them real quick. We got Girl Dad. That's on Amazon. got Fearless Queens. And I'm sorry, my little slider isn't working. There we go. That's on Amazon. Scan that QR code. We got My Therapist is Black. That coloring book is on Amazon. And then we have 100 Bold Affirmations to Calm Your Fears, which is a self help book with a companion journal for you to work with yourself and overcome those fears that are keeping you paralyzed and unproductive. And then, as always, I have resources. The one I really want to talk about is the psychologytoday.com. Go on there, put in your insurance, put in the type of therapist you're looking for, put in the issue, and you're gonna get a list of therapists. And go one by one and ask about consultations and see which one is the best fit. Um, and as always, I want to wrap this thing up with questions, thoughts, or feedback. And I know that was a lot of information, but I hope that you guys learned and are going to grow. And as a result of this, feel empowered to find a therapist that works for you.
Janae was speaking, we had a few questions come in, and I'm not sure what happened to it, but we appreciate you all. Here she is about to come back. Look, that won't nothing but the devil. But if you got a question, go ahead and put that in the chat. I know it's a lot of information given tonight, but we want you all to be well knowledge, well versed, and you know what? Ask your questions. There may have been some things said that you needed a little clarity, or again, if there's something that you may want to reach out, you could always go to her website, lifesparkcounseling.com, or text 386-400-3100. She will get back to you. But if there's no questions, I have the two that was asked to me. And one of those questions, Janae, was how can I make counseling normal in my family?
Well, I would say be the example, be the model. Go get therapy. Be the one that starts it out. Go. I've seen that happen in my practice where one relative come in, then the next sibling comes in, then the next following week the aunt is coming in. So just be the model. Just take the first step. Be the example.
And then the other question was, is there a resource for you to know therapists that will do pro bono or the sliding scale? Is that available knowledge on Psychology Today?
No, that is not available on Psychology Today. I would advise to maybe do 211 in your area, United Way. Sometimes if you reach out to therapists in your area and say, hey, do you know of any therapists that have pro bono or free services? Um, Most therapists kind of know, like I know the free and pro bono services here in my area. And when people call and ask for them, I do provide that resource. My only concern is, if I share that to someone in North Carolina, it would not help them or even in another state. But yes, reach out to 211 or a therapist in your area. Um, Google it. Google free or pro bono therapy services in your city, your county, your state.
Okay. And the last question that we have is do you do pro bono work or a sliding scale?
So I used to do a sliding scale, and I'm gonna be very transparent. I stopped with the sliding scale. I'm gonna tell you why. I discovered there was a pattern, and the pattern was the more every time I reduced my rate, or I used to go down to $20 a session. Those clients were not committed. They wouldn't show up. They would not do the work. And I have found that people invest their time and energy where they invest their money.
Absolutely. That's good there. Well, that is all the questions that we have. Janae, we appreciate you. Thank you for giving us the understanding, going through the myths, the needs, and the truth of therapy and what is needed. So we appreciate you. All you all in the virtual world, please share this with somebody that you know that maybe has some questions about therapy or wants to, kind of get more information, but they don't necessarily want to talk to a therapist, share this video. They can go back, kind of listen in, take some notes, and kind of have a foundation of what to take to a therapist. Again, Psychology Today. I also recommend that to my members and people that come to me for counseling when they're looking for a counselor, because it gets very detailed and distinctive of what you want. And so therapy is great. It's a great tool. It's a great resource. So again, Janae, we thank you. We appreciate you. If you can all put some fire, some hearts, some waving hands for this boss mom, this wonderful woman that takes time out of her day to come with us once a month here on Therapy Tuesdays. Janae, thank you so much. We appreciate you. So as always, we're going to end this session. I pray that you were blessed today, that you got something that, can help you further your life, further your family, and just continue to take you forward. We're about building and growing the kingdom. You can't be successful spiritually if your mind's not right. That's why we always hear, you have to renew your mind daily. Part of that is having a therapist. Part of that is having somebody that you can safely talk to, who is your accountability partner. So, get you a therapist, get you a friend that's in therapy. You can ask them some questions. Be okay with talking. Sometimes we have to reach back for others. So as you see on my shirt, Therapy Tuesdays, support us. If you want to support Janae, support what we're doing, we have our Cash App, our Givelify. We also have our website. You can go to lfrchurch.org and go to giving, as well as now we are streaming on there, and the books and available resources will be updated as well. So we're just trying to do some new things here at Love and Faith, as well as we have our Bible study on Thursday. We're digging deeper, and again, we got some events coming up as well. Hey, you like the shirt, you want to support, go to the website, support Therapy Tuesdays. I need Jesus and my therapist, because guess what? It is rocking. So I'm telling you all, hey, we're here for you. We're praying for you. We're believing in you. And we're trusting that God's going to get you through whatever situation it is that you're in. So I love you. But before I leave, I have to say a prayer for you. We can't leave without praying, because prayer does change things. If we put it in the atmosphere, if we believe it, if we'll speak it and touch and agree. I spoke about it Sunday. If me and you can touch and agree, God can change it. So I'm going to go to prayer right now. Father, we just thank you for this Therapy Tuesday session. Father, that some people will get bold in their heart and in their spirit to say, you know what, God, I need help. I need a little bit more than what I've been getting. I've been reading my Bible, but now I want to take it a step further because I want to be totally free. And Father, I know that I'm going to activate my faith by saying I'm going to find me somebody to talk to. I'm tired of the way I've been. So Father, help free your people tonight. Touch your sons and daughters right now, God, that whatever has been holding them and putting them in a chokehold, God, that they will be free. We decree and declare that freedom will come to their families, their heart and their mind. Father, free their mind right now in the mighty name of Jesus. Free their heart from brokenness right now, God. Free them from the trauma and triggers that they have been through. But Father, most of all, God, allow them to be free in you. Father, we thank you and we praise you. In Jesus Christ's mighty name. Amen, amen, amen. So I love you. I love you. God bless you. Until next time, we'll have our schedule up on the website, as well as we got a special event next month happening. So I'll be releasing that soon. I love you. God bless you. Take care as well. Hey, check our website out, lfrchurch.org, lfrchurch.org. God bless. I got a road ahead of me that I'm watching out to. I'm built to win, so there's no good trouble. There's still a race. Take it off. I can't give up because God's been that good to me. I can't give up and just get out of the line because God has got a miracle. I'm going from the table to time. How do y'all believe that in this room? Say it again. I can't give it. I won't turn back. Because no weapon formed against me is going to prosper. I'm built. So the trial of this life, this still brings me to